Hey everyone, welcome back to Unboxing the Underground. I am so thrilled and absolutely honored to have here on the channel tonight writer, director, filmmaker Jonathan Doe, who is the CEO of Putrid Productions, as well as actress and writer, director, and CFO of Putrid Productions, Regan Fox. And together they have created one of 2025's most extreme and out of control films, Majestic Faucet of Projectile Bile, which is available now on their website, on DVD, and digitally. Thank you both so much for being here.
Of
Thank
course,
you.
for having us on.
So to kick it off, and I know I've been curious about this ever since the announcement of the film, what was your kind of creative partnership like? What did it stem from? How did you two team up to make the film, and what ultimately decided what kind of propelled you both to create this film as part of the EGN series?
Do you want to go first, Reagan, or you want me to go first?
You go first.
Well, I met Reagan like socially and through us like we both shared an interest in like extreme cinema. We both shared an interest in like shockumentaries and real gore and things like that. And I think it's better for you to share because you can talk about your experience in meeting me and coming out of the closet, so to say.
All right. Um, well, I love to share this part is that when I met you, you were wearing your Ed Gein shirt, and I loved true crime and serial killers, and I was like, we can wear that on our shirt outside in public, and it's okay. And you were like, yeah, you can wear whatever the fuck you want. And so from that, we just kind of like started talking about all these interests that I had that I was closeted about, but Jonathan was like very out in the open about it. And he really inspired me to kind of just, like what I like and don't give a fuck about what other people think. Um, and I think the reason we got started working on this film was that I found out that he made a little film called Barf Bunny, and I watched it and I was like, "Oh, that's cute." But I think I can do this better. So I shared a little talent I have with him that I had never told anyone about. And he was like, "Oh shit, we need to use this." And so, it just kind of stemmed from there.
Yeah, so Reagan showed me her talent of being able to basically puke on command anytime she wants to.
I
And
could do it right now if you want.
so I don't know, I just started thinking of ideas because I had when it came to the EGN series, like I was open to the idea of doing another one, but I wasn't like on the hunt trying to like figure out an idea or do anything like that. I just felt like when the universe brought an opportunity to me, it would, and it turned out being Reagan. And we went for my birthday. I went to the Museum of Death up in LA, and then from there, me and my friends went, and Reagan along with us went to the LA Abandoned Zoo, and it was just I just wanted to see it. It was just kind of like a destination I always wanted to check out, and going there and seeing it, I was like, this is a perfect filming location for something. And it was then that Reagan and I started talking about ideas of us doing something, and so that's like what planted the seed that ultimately became Majestic Flesh Faucet. So yeah.
I remember it stemmed from like our initial idea was like just getting a bunch of canvases and having me puke different colors on them and like making art. And then it grew from there.
Yeah, that's how everything kind of goes with my productions is like, like I like to meet somebody and then like start spitballing and just let things evolve and grow from there. And I think I think Reagan and I spitballing like we learned about each other's religious trauma. We learned about, we found we found an amazing talent and we had these ideas and we're like, okay, what narrative can we build around certain scenes and things like that? And we decided to focus on blasphemy as kind of the center of the story.
Now, going on from there, like in terms of production, can you both talk a little bit about how the film got off the ground from like a logistical standpoint? You mentioned finding the location, obviously, but what was your creative process, like your collaborative process in writing and conceptualizing the film?
Um, you can go, Reagan.
Well, I mean, the locations really inspired the story. And we're also, we don't have a lot of money. It's just the two of us. And so I'm a big believer in using locations that are already kind of decorated for you. So like the church already is beautiful, and we didn't have to do a lot of like set design. And when we were visiting the LA Abandoned Zoo, there was this like well thing. And we had this idea of like maybe me going down the well and like kind of having an Alice in Wonderland kind of moment. And that didn't end up happening, but it did spur on this idea of this fairy tale. And then the way we see, the Bible and Christianity is kind of like that. It's just a fairy tale. And it can be told that way. And so I think that led to that. I mean, it was just free flowing. We didn't really sit down and have a plan of anything. We never like storyboarded or anything like that. We just like each scene, we just kept having new ideas and just going from there. And just, I don't know, it just like even the last time we filmed, I think right before we didn't know exactly what we were going to do. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I would say the first thing that we did was we went and shot the opening segment out in the woods where Regan's dressed up like a princess, and at that point we were still kind of like thinking, oh, is this going to be like an Alice in Wonderland feel, or where's it going to go? And that was almost like practice shooting. But I had a loose we had a loose like narrative in mind, and then we decided to go shoot at the abandoned zoo, and we went to an Asian market and bought like all the fish and stuff, and I just wanted to do something that was like an ode or a homage to like Genki Genki, and like Japanese tentacle porn and things like that. And so we shot that there. But we also brought like religious candles and stuff because we had this kind of blasphemous idea. And it wasn't until after we shot that that really we kind of like started honing in on like, okay, this is gonna have biblical undertones and all of this kind of stuff. And then once we decided that, we just went full in like, okay, well, this is just going to be extremely blasphemous, extremely disrespectful, and just like a spit in the face to God, basically. And that's where we really, I think, really stepped it up and like got really good looking professional props and decided to like kind of go in the direction of having her puke on Christ's severed head and rebirthing the Antichrist. So. And then I think it all flows pretty organically and really cool. So,
Was the film shot in sequence? Because it definitely feels like it was, to its credit.
sequence one and two were shot in chronological order, and then we actually shot the resurrection of Satan, and then the last thing we shot was um puking on Christ's head. And the reason we did that was, but we shot the last two sequences we shot at the same time. So we were down in we were in a real sewer. We were about a quarter of a mile in or half a mile into this sewer, deep enough that no one would mess with us. And we shot both of that. We were down there for like 6 hours, and we shot both of those sequences. But because we're in this closed, it's an open sewer, but we're deep in it. I didn't know what it was going to be like when the head caught on fire, and if it was going to be a lot of smoke, and we needed to get out of there quick. I wanted that to be the last, like that's the last shot. Let's grab our shit and let's get out of there. So it's mostly shot in chronological order, and you could say like it was shot chronologically in terms of days. The first sequence was one, then the next time it was sequence two was the next day, and then the next day was the last two.
Now, Reagan, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how you got into character for the production. Like, there's a very obvious progression of extremity and intensity, not to mention like the physical element of everything, of having to like constantly puke on camera every day. How did you get into that headspace to give the emotional performance, and then also like, did it take any sort of physical toll on you to do that, or did it kind of just come out naturally?
Um, well, to get into character, this film, I mean, it means something different to both of us, and then to anyone watching it, it means something else. But I just was like, this is my film. This is about my life. Where I grew up Christian. I grew up um, going to church every single week, 3 times a week, twice on Sunday, Bible study twice a week. I did missionary work. I went to Christian private school. Like I was very much this girl in the garden, this, you know, all in white, all naive and just innocent. And then, so I really don't feel like I had to ever get in character. It came so naturally for me. And then I feel like the Genki portion, it feels like when I met Jonathan. It's like I was like, what is happening? Like, oh, I kind of like this. And then by the end of it, it's like, oh fuck, I don't give a fuck about anything anymore. um, I just can, literally birth the Antichrist and puke on. I mean, if I told my younger self what I did in this movie, I don't even know what I would do. um, but yeah, so especially with the blasphemous parts, it was not hard to act. I literally just channeled all that anger I had from my religious trauma. I would think about my mom, and it felt good. It didn't feel like acting. It just felt like freeing. Um, because I had never burned Bible pages before, and um, taken a crown of thorns off of Christ's head, but that just felt so fucking empowering. And in terms of the puking, I don't want to divulge too much about that, but I have a very good talent for it. It doesn't take much. I just kind of it doesn't hurt at all.
He really is puking. It is real.
Yeah,
Just
no, it's real. I
no.
just am a freak. I am a flesh faucet. That is literally what I am. I can literally just like be a fire hose and just do it. So,
I'm not the first person to say it, but when I first saw the poster, in which you are basically mid projectile, I don't want to say I thought it was fake, but it looked augmented in some way. And to find out when you see the actual shot in the film, I was like, God damn it, they did it.
that is why I told Jonathan, I was like, for one, I've never even seen anyone. Well, I saw one person that could do what I do one time on TV, and it was a magician. And people were freaking out about it. And I was like, God damn, I'm not a magician. I wish I could do something with this shit. And then when I met Jonathan and knowing that he makes a metaphilia art films, I'll say, I was like, oh crap, this is my chance. I can do this. So yeah, I don't even know where I was going with that, but yeah.
No, that answered it beautifully.
Yeah, thank you.
This is a bit more of a technical question, but Jonathan, I've always been curious about this, both with this film and your other EGN films. Can you talk a little bit about your approach to cinematography? Because each of the EGN films have a very distinctive SOV look, and this is no exception. And it very much kind of builds this very insinuating world. Do you work from, I mean, I think you said you don't work from a shot list, but how much of like Reagan's performance dictated your camera operating? Because it all seems very organic, not documentary like at all, but very much kind of like this sort of ebb and flow of operation where you know when to go in, you know when to pull out, and then you know also know when to be patient and measured. Like the pan down shots in the church are some of the best cinematography I've seen in any of your films. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that.
Um, well, I think I do take like a lot of inspiration from different filmmakers. Especially I'm inspired by Lars von Trier, um uh York Bookerite, um and then I can't believe his name's at the Werner Herzog, especially Werner Herzog, especially like films like um Even Dwarf Started Small. I like it to feel immersive and like you're almost there. Especially like Barf Bunny. I wanted Barf Bunny to feel like you're sitting across the table from her. And with this film, I wanted it to like, especially during the communion scene, like we're in a real sewer, and I'm literally standing in like there's a stream of water beneath us, and you can hear my footsteps like as I'm walking in the water, and I deliberately kept that in there because I wanted it to feel like you're in there. Um, and I almost wanted to have like a voyeuristic approach to it. But then with like directors like Marian Dora does a lot of with his films, like he really sets the tone with the atmosphere where you're at. He's got lots of B-roll shots of like if say they're at the fair, like in Angel's Melancholia, he's got all these shots of this different stuff. And um I mean, I know he's a controversial figure, but I do admire his cinematography and that it really immerses you in this world. And so I really wanted, I think it's both those things. I want when the action's happening, I want it to feel voyeuristic and I want it to feel almost POV. And, she's about to puke. Let's get a closer look. We're gonna get closer in and um or I want you to see like the whole set of the table while this is going on and things like that. So um I think you worded it perfectly. It feels organic, it feels um and it feels voyeuristic. So that's kind of my approach, but I do derive inspiration from, like in the in I brought up already, even doors started small when they're riding in the car and it's driving in a circle and it feels like at different shots that you're almost riding on the back of that car with them and shit while they're smashing plates and doing all that. Like I love that look and I kind of want to have that incorporated into my work as well.
That's awesome. I've always been curious about your visual. I feel like it's not asked much of you about the visuals of the films, but it's almost another character.
Yeah.
Um, so
I
when
would
you
I would like to add on that. I would like
Mhm.
first to like kind of watch at least my narrative films and be like, "Oh, that's Jonathan Doe behind the camera." Like it has its own personality. So,
It definitely does. And to that point, when you and Reagan go out to shoot, like let's say, all right, like this is the scene where she's walking, in the sunlight and she's got the basket of she's picking the strawberries. Do you sort of just kind of do these free-flowing takes where you just kind of get what you get, or like what's your process like as far as kind of your dance with the actor?
I usually will do like a line from point A to point B, and I'll say like, "Okay, I'm gonna stand right here, and I want you." I'll walk over to where I want them to stand. Stay right here. I'm gonna go over here, and I want you to walk past the camera, back that way, or whatever, and practice. And I usually do several takes of that, just because I have kind of like a map in my mind of like where they're gonna walk and how it's gonna look. And I appreciate like Reagan and other people I've worked with because there's a lot of trust in that because it just seems blind. Like, okay, walk here to here, then walk here to here. But I kind of when it comes to me making a movie, I have like the whole. I know people like to do shot lists and they like to do like have everything pre-planned, but I like to go there and kind of scope out the environment and sometimes I don't have a choice. Like this is my first time being here. So how are we going to shoot it? Like when we shot, I wanted to shoot in the forest, but I didn't have a specific forest in mind, so I couldn't think of anything in particular. Like I was like, okay, we are going to find a tree to stab strawberries in. We just walked around till we found one that I thought looked good enough. And then I looked around and went, okay, what path do I want them to take? What scenery would be interesting for them to walk by? That rock looks cool. It'd be cool to walk by that rock, things like that. So it's not just me recording a camera and letting them walk aimlessly. It's me going to a spot, scoping it out, and then kind of coming up with a game plan there. So, which is one of the reasons I don't do storyboards because, a lot of the time when we're shooting, this is our first time being here. When we shot in the sewer, yeah, we scoped out the sewer to make sure this was the right sewer, but I didn't know where in the sewer we were going to be, so I can't particularly like plan it all out in that sense. So.
This is a kind of a compound question for both of you. What would you say was the most challenging day of the shoot for like respectively?
Go ahead,
Um,
Reagan.
Definitely the Genki stuff. That was the most challenging thing I've ever done in my entire life. So, um, like just we went out there in the middle of the night. It was 2 a.m. and no one was supposed to be out there. We thought we were going to be alone. And like we're walking to it. It's like quite a ways from the car. We're having to lug all of our stuff. And all of a sudden these teenagers like jumped out of the bushes and scared me. And I before that, I had not done a lot of like urban exploring or like anything requiring bravery at all. I was very sheltered, very, very like the girl in the garden, I'm just dipping my toes in here and I'm kind of like, well, I'm jumping in actually. um, So that was terrifying. And then Jonathan kept reminding me that, oh, this is where the hillside stranglers dump some chicks' bodies, and this is where Richard Ramirez dumps some chicks. And I'm like, oh, that's great. Thank you. Um, but yeah, so I was terrified. And then having to put that stuff in my mouth, it didn't taste as good as I thought it was gonna taste. I don't know what I was thinking. I was like, people eat sushi all the time. Um, yeah, it was horrible, especially the fish. The fish was the worst. I've never tasted anything worse in my entire life. Um, and that's where I almost was like, I don't know if I can do this. But it was kind of, well, I'm in it. Um, but yeah, that was tough. I like had to disassociate for a while afterwards. I almost thought like maybe we did something immoral, which is funny because when we did the blasphemy, I didn't feel that way at all. It just kind of felt like another Tuesday. Like, oh, thank God we're done. Let's go get some food. Whereas with the fish, I was like, does this fish have a family? Like, should I be titty fucking this fish right now? So yeah, that was the hardest day
To
for me.
piggyback off that though, the fish thing was both of our idea, and Reagan and I both went to the Asian market, and you were picking out fish. We both were walking around just picking things out. So I wasn't being like this hard director, like you're gonna fucking do it. You have to do this shit, you know. Um, it was a mutual effort.
I, no offense, I like to take credit for the whole fish idea because we were trying to think of like gross things to do. And I had this vision of Gollum from the Lord of the Rings just biting into that fish. And I was like, ooh, I could do that. And then when I got the fish was fucking frozen. So I couldn't bite into it. I was like, damn it, my whole vision. But so I was pulling inspiration from Peter Jackson and Lord of the Rings, and Jonathan was pulling from Mermaid and Manhole and Genki Genki. But
Yeah,
we both were inspired.
but I will say that that was the hardest shoot in terms of this for this film. The hardest shoot also, just because we both live far away from LA. It was like a mission to get out there, and then the car we had to park very far away, and like we had this kind of wagon thing that we had to lug everything with. And by the time the shoot was done, Reagan's like covered in like bug guts and or like not bug guts, fish guts and is wet, and she's like shivering, and so
It
I'm
was
like,
winter.
yeah. And so I'm like, well, you can go sit in the car and I'll clean up. And and then all my story is like, oh, this is where all these murderers dumped people. Now I'm having to walk back in the fucking dark by myself, and I'm like, dude, I'm gonna see a ghost, you know? And so I had to be in this abandoned zoo all by myself with you like a quarter of a mile away from me. And yeah, so that was spooky for sure. And it took a while, and it was cold, and it was a long ass shoot, but you gotta do what you
And you
gotta do.
called me, you were like, I need someone to talk to.
Yeah, that's spooky.
And then, just getting our stuff in there, we had to like squeeze it through a fence. I mean, we had to do that with the sewer too, but I don't
Yeah,
know. That
all of our stuff like when it came to the zoo, there was like a piece of the fence that has was broken, and so we had to squeeze everything through, but it wasn't wide enough for us to go through, so we had to put all our stuff and then go down to the end of the gate, walk around, come back, get our stuff. And then when it came to shooting in the sewer, we had to push everything over to the fence to get down into the sewer. And after we shot, we were taking everything out. There was a guy walking his dog, and I saw him, and he like was calling the police because we were crawling out of the sewer. And so I had to tell Reagan like, yeah, let's get the fuck out of here so this we don't have to deal with the cops. So
it was just us. There's literally no one else was involved in this film at all. It was just me and Jonathan. So, and I did a lot of hard shit. Like I'm a girl, but I was right there with him, like lugging things around and doing the hard shit. So
yeah.
So you finish the shoot, and what does the editing process look like? Because I know Reagan, you were the single editor, or was Jonathan also the editor on it as well?
oh, Jonathan did most of the editing and he did like he did all of it, and then I came in and did some color correction and
Mhm.
kind of got that look and feel of like the high contrast, the high saturation, and then like some other things. But Jonathan did the majority of the editing and all of the sound too. I mean, I listened to it and I was like, oh hell yeah, that sound is great, but that was all him.
Yeah, so I pretty much edited the movie and then scored it and everything like that. And then I would send portions over to Reagan and ask her how she felt and all of that. And then once it was all said and done, like the final uh I guess the rough edit or whatever, then I sent it over to Reagan for her to do color correction and balancing and things like that because that's her talent. So
I do kind of know how to photo edit stuff. It's like it's a hobby of mine, being a woman, you know. We just take photos and we fuck with them. But I don't know, something a fun fact to know is that while you were editing the film, so we shot the last scene and then like immediately the next day Jonathan moved and we had like a road trip in a moving van like up the coast to Oregon, and we did like a whole true crime road trip. So while we're checking out all of these true crime sites, he's editing Flesh Faucet, and I don't know, I just thought that was really neat.
Oh yeah, that was yeah, we were like basically going up the whole West Coast, checking out like Ed Kemper's house and Zodiac and all that kind of stuff. And I was editing it, but simultaneously you were also doing the behind the scenes editing and you made a whole documentary on it too. So
Yeah, the whole well, the documentary for Flesh Faucet, and I made a basically a documentary for our road trip. That's, I mean, we'll see what happens with that.
That was also
so
a question, Reagan. Like, I think the behind the scenes doc is such a valuable tool to one, just fans of extreme cinema and the movie itself, but also to kind of aspiring guerrilla filmmakers. Was it always sort of in the cards to make a doc as you were acting in this film and co-directing it?
No, I mean, I just loved capturing what we were doing. I was just so stoked to just do it. And I don't know, I love taking little videos. And I mean, Jonathan was down every time I was like, hey, let's take a video and let's document this. And I just realized at one point, I was like, damn, I have a lot of footage here. I should probably put this all together. Um, and that's when I sat down and I like edited it into, you know, what I would call a documentary. But it was never like intentional. It just kind of happened. I just, you know, I'm just a girl who's experiencing life through the lens of her cell phone. You guys get to see
and
it.
I with all of my releases I always try to put at least some but like behind the scenes stuff going on and things like that just because of the nature of these films. Like I've had people come to me and say, how do you treat your actresses in your movies? Do you exploit them? Do you force them to do this shit or whatever? So I always like I'm just a guy, like fuck what I have to say. I always tell people to go ask the people I've worked with or go watch behind the scenes footage so you can see because it's always a collaborative effort and um just because you're watching a girl do something that's perceived as gross doesn't mean that they're doing it against their will. Most of the time, it was their idea. I just was like, "Oh, are you down? Let's film it." And so, I mean, so much of I mean, this project was 50-50 all the way through and everything you see on screen was agreed upon by both of us. So,
And that's one of the things I love about not only Reagan's doc, but the other docs that are on your DVDs as well, is there's an almost like kind of disarming sort of atmosphere that it shows us the camaraderie and just the general, usually fun atmosphere that accompanies your directing and all the sets that you run. They
mhm.
all seem very, very collaborative and creative, and that everyone's kind of there for a common goal.
Yeah, like we're here to make something fucking gross, so let's do it. We're all on board. So
I like to think that we made a film that we were like, we're gonna have fun and make it exactly what we want, and just as if nobody else would see it. And it was a blast. Like we had so much fun. I mean, there was really hard parts, but the really hard parts, I would watch the footage that Jonathan took like right afterwards, and we would be like high-fiving and be like, fuck yeah, like that looked fucking sick. So it was all worth it. It was like I am so glad we did those really hard things. So yeah, that's why it shines through in the documentary. It's because that's how it really was. We were just having fun.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that's how people should make art. I feel like that's one of the reasons why Hollywood movies are bombing right now is it's got dollar signs as the motivator, not a love for the craft. And so we're making something because we love it. And if this movie bombed and no one liked it, at least we walked away happy. Like we took what we had in our brains and we put it on camera. And but what I've found is when you just do what you want to fucking do and not worry about other people's opinions, that's where you kind of find success because you come up with original ideas, you come up with going in directions and shit that people haven't done before because you're not focused on what other people are thinking or doing or whatever. So,
I couldn't
And
agree more.
that's true. I want to say too, it's like I've never seen a film like this. There might be, it's full of homages, but I can't think of a single film that is like this film. Like I don't know. And that is because we weren't thinking about pleasing anyone else but ourselves.
So, as a general wrap up, what is next for the two of you for future productions? Is there another film in the works? Any new projects you guys can talk about?
yeah, so I'm in post production. Reagan and I both are in post production for a documentary called If Trees Could Talk, A Conversation with Terry Hobbs. And that's a documentary that I co-directed with Andrew Dodge, who hosts the podcast Uneasy Train, or not Uneasy Train, Unforbidden Truth. And he interviews like serial killers and stuff. That's centered around the West Memphis 3 case where three 8-year-old boys back in 1993 were murdered in the Robin Hood Hills and then three teenagers were arrested. And this is like in the middle of satanic panic. They thought that they killed the boys as a satanic ritual, and they ended up serving 19 years in prison before they were released on an Alford plea. And now that they're out, there was no tangible physical evidence um, found at the crime scene that tied the boys in at all. But there was physical evidence tied to Terry Hobbs, who is one of the stepfathers of one of the boys, Stevie Branch. And a lot of people speculate that Terry Hobbs did it. And he's been targeted since at least 2007 as not legally a suspect, but like in terms of like um people in the community, like internet sleuths and stuff, they look at him as a suspect. And so back in 2023, he invited me and Andrew to go to his house and interview him and ask questions. And he just gave us unfiltered access into his life and kind of shared his side and addressed the accusations of whether he did it or not. And so that's in post production. We're finishing that up right now. And then we have another documentary coming out later this year or maybe the beginning of next year called The Legend of Uncle Goddamn, which is a really infamous tape that was traded around in the early 90s of this redneck family in North Carolina. And they would just their uncle, Uncle Robert would come home. They called him Cow Pussy, and he would be blackout drunk, and they would fuck with him. They'd spray paint his face, and they would like tie him up and do all this shit to him. But most infamously, they would get lighter fluid and light him on fire, and he would wake up and he'd go, "God damn!" And that's why he got called Uncle Goddamn. And it is also circulated as the amazing redneck torture tape. But it was this very elusive tape. Like everyone had seen it, but there wasn't a lot of information about it. And I ended up finding the family, the Elmore family that was behind this whole thing. And I went to North Carolina and interviewed them and talked to them about this. And it's probably the most in-depth like look into like behind the scenes of this stuff, which is kind of what Putrid Productions is about, especially with like cinema's underbelly and stuff, is exploring and looking at obscure underground fucked up cinema. And so that's exciting. And so I shot that before Reagan and I got involved with each other, but now she's going to be a part of like the editing process and things like that. And then we also have a bunch of podcasts, and I'll pass it over to you, Reagan, and you can talk about our podcasts.
Yeah, we have true crime bedtime stories where Jonathan and I take turns telling true crime stories in a very ASMR fairy tale type way. There's like rain sounds and it's very immersive. I do the editing for that. I do the writing. It's kind of my baby. And then we have Smutopia, which is me, Jonathan, and JC Brady. JC Brady is my very best friend from when we were like 6 and 8 years old. And when I met Jonathan, I was just thinking of JC and I was like, oh man, you guys would get along because you both are interested in a lot of really fucked up things. Um, like JC used to send me things like one man, one jar. And like, I don't know what it's called, but there was a thing with a wasp in a urethra. And this was when we were teenagers. I was like, this is disgusting. It would make me like throw up and cry. But then, I met Jonathan. I was like, oh, you guys would get along. So we just like watch smutty movies and we review them and we rate them by like sex, death, and rock and roll. And it's just a great time. We just have fun and we laugh and it's silly. But I think we're about to wrap up the season, like filming wise. Um, but yeah, those are the podcasts.
And then I also have uh, Cinema's Underbelly, which kind of went on a hiatus while I was working on these different projects, but I'm finally in a position where I have enough time and stuff to start working on it again. So Cinema's Underbelly is gonna be making a return, and then same with Murderbilia Show and Tell. I'm a big collector of Murderbilia, and Murderbilia Show and Tell is another YouTube channel where I take pieces from my collection and kind of talk about the significance of these artifacts and the stories behind them, and I incorporate like original like news footage and things like that talking about it. And then lastly, the very first podcast I ever did was called the Uneasy Train Explorers Club, and that's where I interview people from the fringes of society, horror directors, crime scene cleaners, serial killers, porn stars, people that just have weird jobs. I've interviewed three cannibals on the show for different things. Um, so yeah, I mean, and that I wouldn't say is done, but I've got a couple of interesting people in mind that I might want to be interviewing too. So I mean, we just have there's Putrid has so many fucking things going on. You could just pick one thing that you're into, and there's a lot of things you can go down, but there's enough to entertain you for a long time.
And I know I love it all, and I know your fans love it all. And thank you both so, so much for taking the time. I'm a huge fan of you guys.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having us on.
I appreciate it. And I will let you know when this goes live.
Awesome, sick. Thanks.
Good.
Thank you guys.
Thanks.